Okay, let's take a look at the Eagles and the Washington football team. Now, last year, we saw these two teams play each other in week 1, and it ended up being a pretty good game for fantasy. This was the breakout game for Terry McLaurin, and the game that Desean Jackson showed us what we were hoping to see from him, and unfortunately, it was the only week that we saw that from him, right? So, actually a decent low over-under in this one. They're projecting this to be a 42.5 point game, with the Eagles winning by 6. So that's giving us an implied point total of about 24-18. Eagles winning this one. Now, last year, the Eagles were pretty good at stopping the run, and that's kind of been their MO for a while. Also pretty good against the tight end, but they were pretty bad, especially towards the end of the year against the receivers. Now, obviously, adding Darius Slay should hopefully help their secondary a little bit, but I'm not expecting them to be lights out against the pass by any means. And the Washington football team were pretty atrocious against the run last year, pretty average across the board elsewhere. So I don't know why this one is such a low over-under. We've seen these teams go head-to-head a lot, and they typically tend to be pretty competitive games. We saw that in week 1 last year, and then also, I believe it was week 16 that they played. It was pretty close, and there was a lot of scoring going back and forth. Obviously, adding Chase Young might end up giving Carson Wentz and the run game there in Philadelphia a little bit of a scare, but we'll see how it turns out. We're not really sure exactly how all these rookies are going to fit in right away. I'm not expecting everyone to have a Clyde Edwards-Helaire type breakout in week 1. So what does that mean in terms of who we're starting? We'll look at the Eagles. I'm starting pretty much everyone that you drafted with the intention of starting. Carson Wentz, I think, is a smash play this week. Should be a pretty high-scoring game. I like the over in this one. Miles Sanders, obviously you took him either in the first or second round. There's concern that maybe he's going to be put on like a pitch count, or they'll use him in a limited workload, but pay attention to the words here. They said possibly, potentially. It's not a guarantee. And at this point, last year, Miles Sanders put up a 30-point PPR game against the Washington football team. And even if he gets limited touches, he still could produce. On those, you probably don't have a better option. And I still think Miles Sanders is going to be good to go. To me, that sounds like coach speak. It sounds like a smoke screen, but maybe that's just my blinders coming on because I love Sanders so much. But I'm definitely starting Sanders pretty confidently this week. Desean Jackson, if you drafted him, your expectation was to be able to start him in week 1, right? Like, there's no reason to try to bench Desean Jackson right now because this is the part of the year where he's healthy. You have to start him this week. And then Zach Ertz, obviously, in a smash play. And I would still be comfortable starting the Eagles defense, even though I'm expecting there to be a decent amount of points scored. I think they could probably get quite a few sacks and a few interceptions from Dwayne Haskins. Now, with Boston Scott and Dallas Goddard, both of these guys are interesting DFS plays, guys that I would consider starting in like a really deep league, but probably not someone I'm going to try to force or shove into my lineup unless we get like confirmation that Sanders isn't going to play a lot. Then Boston Scott becomes a better play, or if Zach Ertz decides he's going to sit out because of his contract situation. Both of these guys I'm going to try to avoid because I believe in Sanders. And with Goddard, still a little concerned about that hairline fracture in his thumb. That could end up impacting him early on. So probably going to try to avoid these guys if I can, but they're not the worst starts. And then Greg Ward and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. And then I guess I should throw Jalen Reagor as a question mark in this game because he did practice fully today. So I guess there's the chance that he might play, but I think they'll probably end up sitting him out just to try to prevent any potential injury there or worsening of that shoulder injury. But I'm probably pretty much only going to play the tight ends and Desean Jackson in this one. I'm going to keep my hands off of Greg Ward and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside until we see how this offense kind of balances itself out. All right, jumping over to Washington, I am definitely comfortable starting Antonio Gibson this week. It's not like you have to force him into your lineup over someone that you drafted like ahead of him, but you probably drafted him, especially if you did this last week, you probably had to spend like between a 5th and a 7th round pick on him. You're most likely expecting to start him. So you can check my rankings out on Fantasy Addiction Network and see who I have him ranked around if you're looking for, a specific start set advice, or you can comment and I'll get back to you when I have a second. But Antonio Gibson, I think, is going to have a pretty good week. Even though the Eagles are pretty good against the run, Antonio Gibson is going to get a lot of work in the passing game, which is pretty much what we've been expecting from him anyway. And I think in PPR especially, he's still going to have a pretty good week, even if he doesn't get a lot of carries. And obviously Terry McLaurin, he torched the Eagles last year, had multiple 100-yard games against the Eagles both times they played. So Terry McLaurin is an auto start. Now, Steven Sims is another interesting name. I'm probably not going to play him if I can avoid it, but he could actually have a pretty good game in this one. He had a decent game against the Eagles last year towards the end of the season, and there really aren't that many other pass catchers for this team. So he's the kind of guy that I want to keep on my bench if I can and wait and see how they use him in week one, because he could end up being someone that you pick up off waivers, but if you can pick him up now for free, just hang on to him and then you save yourself some waiver hassle in week two. I'm going to bench everyone else, though. J.D. McKissick, Bryce Love, I don't know what kind of usage they're going to give those guys, and they don't give you the same upside that Gibson gives you in the passing game. Logan Thomas is getting a lot of interest, but the Eagles were great against stopping the tight end last year. There's no way I'm starting Washington's defense this one, because I think the Eagles are going to put up a lot of points. So overall, I like the Eagles in this one by 10. Give me the Eagles 31 to Washington at 21.